Over the course of playing both the alpha and the beta for Marvel Rivals, I think I've gotten a decent idea of where exactly the game wants to go, and based off of that, I think I have a couple of ideas for the characters that would really be neat. But I'm not trying to make an hour-long video, so without further ado, this is one change for every character on the cast. If the character doesn't show up, it's because I think that they're either in a fine place or they're magnificent like Spider-Man. First up is Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange is actually really cool, and overall probably my favorite tank or vanguard in the current game. My only change to him would actually be more of a neat idea rather than a change. I think it'd be really cool if for maybe the last 200 portion of his shield's health, it played towards building up his Maelstrom of Madness, just to make the shield feel overall more connected to his kit. But outside of that, I think they did an absolutely wonderful job with Doctor Strange. It was a very different choice to make him a tank, but I very much appreciate it. Next up is Mantis. In the current state of the game, it feels very underwhelming to play Mantis, especially in comparison to her support alternatives through both Luna and Rocket Raccoon, just because of the case of they both do much greater healing than her, and in Rocket's case even damage. I feel that a change that could help her with this is instead of having this strange over-reliance on trying to hit headshots to be able to get the seeds back, it would be much more intuitive if she just instead had to land maybe 3 to 5 hits just to be able to get one seed back. Of course, some other alternative would be fine too, but overall as it stands right now, it just feels like the headshot to seed ratio doesn't feel like it's enough to really feel like it's even doing much of anything. Being a huge Mantis fan, I am overall disappointed that the character doesn't have more of a more personal, close range touch based playstyle. Like, I really think a cool idea for this character would have been if she granted buffs if she was within a certain range of allies. But nonetheless, this is the Mantis that we have, and this is the change that I feel could make her a little bit more intuitive. Next up is Rocket Raccoon. Another character that I'm disappointed doesn't take more advantage of his inventor side of his character, but to keep on point, the one change that I would present is he feels a little too powerful being able to have separate ammo on both his bullets and his healing capability. So I feel like it would be a little bit better if we combine the two as a consistent ammo pool that he pulls from, so that when he goes to heal, he's pulling from his bullets and vice versa. I realize in doing this, you might just have to make the ammo be overall more, but I think it would create a more interesting dynamic of him having to choose healing over doing damage or the other way around. Next up is Punisher. Oh boy. So admittedly, I'm not too brushed up on my Punisher lore, but from the idea that it's supposed to be sold with this character, it feels like he's supposed to be the very grounded shooting game based character. And I understand that this is definitely the easiest route to portray that idea. However, he feels very strong in his current version due to how much damage all of his weapons do. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing if we just flip this idea a little bit around. I think it would be a very cool idea if Punisher started with his assault rifle and had a set amount of ammo that he would go through. After using up all of his assault rifle ammo, he would toss the weapon and then proceed to move on to his next weapon, which would be the shotgun. After using up all the ammo on the shotgun, he would then throw away that weapon and then proceed to use a new weapon. This idea would obviously work much better if we add more weapons on him, possibly like maybe a pistol or a grenade launcher, something that kind of shows a progression of increasing damage, and then maybe even replacing one of his abilities for an ability to be able to add another clip to the current weapon that he's using. The reason why I'm really sold on this idea is because I really feel like it plays towards the statues that most shooting games are based off of, which is conserving ammo and being adaptable on the fly to all situations. Which, despite not being brushed up on my Punisher lore, feels like a very important part about this character. This change would definitely require some new assets too, especially if we decide to throw in some new weapons, but I think it could overall really be something that's unique and hasn't been done yet in any shooting game that I've seen so far. Next up is Magic. Despite the pain that it brings me that she doesn't use her sword to create a limbo area that puts you in a 1v1 situation with another enemy as her ultimate, the one change I would actually present for this character is to allow her Demon's Rage ability to be able to do a little bit more sustained damage. As it currently is, it comes out and just stays consistently swiping in one direction, which is very easy for an enemy to walk out of. But I think it'd be a lot more interesting if after you placed it, if the demon would stick to the enemy a little bit more, maybe at least just be able to shift its direction based off of what direction the opponent moves in. As it is right now, however, there's never really a reason to choose it over Eldritch Whirl, so this would definitely be the one change that I would make to current Magic, because other than that, she's really fun to play. Next up is Luna Snow. As it is right now, Luna feels fine, exactly what you would think of for the standard support-based class in a team-based shooter like this. However, she has this passive that gives her movement speed, and it's kind of fun to actually even run around and play with, but it feels like nothing else really plays off of that passive. My one change would be to just present some other ways how to proc the passive rather than just running in a straightforward line. Maybe she automatically gets it after landing a successful ice shot, or even after just landing a couple hits on the opponent. Whatever the method is, just allow me to skate more, please. Next up is Iron Man. Funny enough, I feel like Iron Man is one of the most fun characters to play with, but that's only every 20 seconds. See, playing Iron Man successfully definitely involves playing around your armor overdrive to an extreme extent. And this would overall be fine if it felt like I was building towards that, but overall it just feels like his damage output and vulnerability being in the air makes it feel like you should just hide out for the 20 seconds until you get the armor overdrive back to then continue playing the game. So my one change would simply just to be, instead of having armor drive be behind a 20-second cooldown, maybe instead it works similar to the ultimates in the game, where after landing a couple successful shots on something, or maybe landing his alternate fire very consistently, it would build towards his ability to be able to go back into armor overdrive. That way it overall lines up to be the same amount of time that you're waiting anyway, but it overall feels like the game is pushing you to contribute and play the game in order to reach that fun piece of Iron Man. Next up is the character new to the beta, Venom. Venom actually feels pretty fine in his current state. The only change that I would really present is how quickly his symbiotic resilience shield comes up. As it is right now, you click the button and he gets an instant shield that's double, triple, and even sometimes quadruple the current health that he has. The idea of this seems really cool because you try to wait out to see how long you can survive before using the shield in order to get the most out of it. However, how it effectively plays right now, there seems to be no counterplay against Venom to stop him from being able to do this, which leads into long stretches of Venom essentially never dying. So my small change that I would suggest is to give at least a second to the opponent to be able to recognize some kind of animation startup, so that if the opponent may have some kind of ability to be able to stop him before he can do it, they can actually try to counter it. I definitely don't want the move to feel useless, so it shouldn't be too long of a startup, but anything would honestly be more successful than how it currently is now. Next up is Adam Warlock. Guys, this soul preservation team-up passive that he has is insane. Having to kill both Adam Warlock and Mantis twice during a team fight is a little too demanding. I don't know how exactly they can go about fixing this, and I don't necessarily even hate the idea, but having it on 2 supports just seems a little out there. The next 2 are going to be the biggest for sure, as they're the characters that I feel the strongest about. So without further ado, next up is Scarlet Witch. Now I get the idea behind the character, I really do, but this character feels a little bit too slippery for how consistent her damage is across the board. To top it off with the range that she's able to have on some of these characters who are flying and sometimes even just halfway across the screen from her, it makes for a very annoying experience to fight against Scarlet Witch. And personally, I don't find playing her very interesting either, but I also know that's my personal opinion. To help combat this insane slippery potential that she has, my one change would definitely be to do something about her evasive skill, Mystic Projection. I think Scarlet Witch has a very neat idea going on, where the more damage that she does with her Chaos Control, the more it contributes towards her ability to be able to use her Sifthonian Burst, or her right click. However, it feels very strange that that's the only thing it's building towards. So I think it'd be a lot more interesting if, instead, whenever she goes to use a Mystic Projection, it would also take away a stack that would typically go towards her Sifthonian Burst. This would definitely have to warrant some kind of smaller cooldown that comes after using Mystic Projection, but overall I think it would play into this a lot cooler idea of her having to actually work towards her slippery potential rather than kind of just having it for free. The final character that I would like to talk about is none other than Storm. This character's visual design is absolutely stunning. but gameplay-wise, she's definitely the most underwhelming feeling character in the entire game. I mean, the only target that I can think of that she feels at least decent at taking out is Iron Man, and that's only if he doesn't have his boosted armor. And I get the idea that they wanted to go for with this character, being a neat hybrid between an offensive character and a support character, and I really want to stick with that. However, where it currently is right now, it's not doing much. I feel like a large contributing factor to this is the fact that most Storm players will sit on attack boost for most of the game because speed boost doesn't feel very good outside of using it in the very beginning to boost your allies to get to the objective. This character definitely feels like she needs more than one change to help fix her, but I think a good place to start is to help this clashing idea that she has of wanting to be a character that's on the ground and buffing allies, but also a character who's able to fly to the greatest heights. I think when she's naturally in the Thunder form of her weather control, on top of just giving a universal attack buff to the entire team, she should also be able to increase her own attack based off of how many teammates are within her radius. This way we can not only emphasize the idea of sticking with the team to be able to provide the attack buff, but also reward the Storm player for playing around her teammates. I don't think the attack boost should be anything too crazy, maybe only hitting a maximum when she's around 3 teammates, but still this feels like it's already doing leaps and bounds compared to the original. Finally, switching over to the tornado form of her weather control, I think her individual speed boost should increase if there's less allies surrounding her. That way, when she's flying very high up in the air by herself, where her circle is at its absolute smallest, she can potentially take advantage of a 3 or 4 times speed boost compared to what it would normally be, which would probably even out to be how it is if you just use the boosted version of her goddess boost. Still don't think this is a very great change, as I stated before, Storm just feels like she's in a very weak position. However, this might be a good little start to help her feel like she's on the same level as a lot of these other characters. Again, I really love the idea of combining an offensive character and a support character, but she feels like she's just too underwhelming in either of those roles. And that's really it. That's all the changes that I think should come to the Marvel Rivals cast. Well, if you could indulge me for just one more minute, how about a lightning round? Wouldn't it be cool if, like, when she switched between lightning and wind, it changed what her primary fire did? So, like, wind would shoot like it kind of does now with slow projectiles that pierce, but, like, the lightning could be a much faster projectile, but maybe she could charge it to do more damage. And what if her right-click changed, too, based off of what form you were in, too? So, like, instead of having this one move that's locked behind being teamed up with Thor, instead she could shoot it in the lightning stance, but, like, when she's in the wind stance, it changes to, like, a completely different move, maybe, like, a cloud that moves forward that can, like, hide your team, but also, like, be used as a cover, so that you could kind of, like, use it as an engage to sneak your way onto a point. Kind of like how she used the fog in the old 2000s X-Men movie to cover up the X-Jet. Or, like, going off the movie, what if when she uses her ultimate, like, if it destroys the environment around her, she could use the particles of the environment around her to, like, chuck it at the enemy so that it does even more damage. I just really want Storm to be cool, please.